Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into something really special. We are unpacking how a simple ball game evolved from ancient military drills all the way into a global obsession. And we're not just looking at sports history here. We're actually tracing how massive global events, wars, economics, shifting politics, have directly shaped the rules and the hosting decisions of the world's absolute biggest tournament. So, let's jump right into this incredible journey through time.
To kick things off, let's look at one of the most enduring mysteries from our sources. Picture this. It's 1950. The World Cup has finally, grandly returned after the Second World War, and it's being hosted in Brazil. India, led by their legendary Bengali captain Salin Mana, had actually secured their spot. But when the tournament kicked off, the Indian squad was literally nowhere to be found. For decades, this crazy myth has circulated that they were banned simply because they refused to wear boots. We're going to thoroughly debunk that barefoot myth a bit later, but it perfectly highlights how administrative decisions made totally off the pitch can alter football history forever. But before we solve that mystery, we really need to understand where this global obsession actually came from.
So let's start with part one, the chaos before the rules.
It is honestly wild to learn that our sources trace the primal urge of this game back over 2,000 years. Right in the military training camps of ancient China, soldiers played a game called kuju, kicking a leather ball into a net without using their hands. Around the same time, the Greeks were playing episkirus and the Romans had harpastum. But jump ahead to medieval England, and the game had mutated into something called mob football. And it was exactly what it sounds like, a violent, completely unstructured mess where entire villages would just clash in streets and rivers. It was so incredibly disruptive that King Edward II actually banned it in 1314, which honestly was probably a good call at the time, because he legitimately feared it was causing complete social collapse.
But, you can't just ban human nature, right? The people kept playing. Finally, in 1863, the chaos was tamed. The modern Football Association was born, establishing a unified set of rules. And this is the absolutely crucial point. This single moment in 1863 is what officially separated modern football from rugby. By strictly banning the use of hands, it set the stage for organized global competition. And with those rules finally established, well, the game started to travel.
Moving right along to part two, empires, wars, and truces. As the British Empire expanded, sailors and engineers basically carried footballs to every single corner of the earth. But the true, undeniable power of the game was proven on a freezing Christmas night in 1914. Deep in the trenches of World War I, the guns actually fell silent. British and German soldiers stepped out into no man's land, not to fight, but to play football. In that brief, incredible window, the sport proved to be a universal language that was capable of momentarily stopping a literal world war. Recognizing this massive, unifying passion, the sport really needed a central heartbeat. So, in 1904, FIFA was born in a small room in Paris. This was all the vision of Jules Rimet, who realized that football was growing so rapidly it desperately needed its own throne, entirely separate from the Olympics. But, as we're about to see, global economic realities immediately threatened to derail that entire project.
Which brings us to part three, economics and empty ships.
In 1930, Uruguay hosted the first ever World Cup. But get this, only 13 teams actually attended. Why? Well, because this wasn't just about football anymore. It was about global economics. During the Great Depression, spending weeks crossing the Atlantic Ocean on a ship was just an impossible expense for most European nations. Global events directly dictated who could actually step onto the pitch, leaving Uruguay to claim that first title in front of 93,000 fans. Now, to solve that massive travel problem, FIFA introduced a brand new rule to alternate hosting duties between Europe and South America. But this geopolitical friction had immediate consequences. When France was chosen to host the 1938 tournament instead of a South American nation, both Argentina and Uruguay boycotted the whole thing entirely in protest. From its very earliest days, hosting decisions were heavily influenced by international politics. After that, the tournament was paused for 12 long years due to the absolute devastation of World War II. All right, part four, boycotts and the barefoot myth. Okay, let's circle back and solve that mystery from our intro. Why exactly did India skip the 1950 World Cup? They had qualified automatically when Burma and the Philippines withdrew. For years, the super popular myth was that FIFA banned them for wanting to play barefoot. But the source material is super clear on the reality here. The All India Football Federation just didn't value the World Cup yet. They heavily prioritized the Olympics. Astonishingly, they claimed they couldn't afford the travel, completely ignoring offers of financial help from private donors and even the Brazilian hosts. It was just a massive administrative lack of vision, not a dispute over boots, that ended up costing them their golden ticket. While India unfortunately stayed home, the rest of the world witnessed what became known as the Maracana tragedy. In that 1950 final, Uruguay defeated Brazil right in their own backyard, silencing nearly 200,000 fans in the stadium. This moment really cements how deeply woven football had become with national identity. The sport was no longer just a game. I mean, for the fans in that stadium, it was a matter of actual, profound national grief. And as we enter the modern era, we see how rapidly the game continued to evolve from there.
Next up, Part 5, Politics, Tragedy, and Technology.
Let's walk through some of the key milestones that really modernized the tournament. In 1934, overwhelming interest led to the introduction of qualifiers. By 1954, the introduction of live television broadcasting completely catapulted the tournament's global reach. It was a total game changer. But FIFA was also constantly forced to navigate global politics and even climate realities. In 1966, due to discriminatory policies, apartheid South Africa was banned from the sport for 26 years. And fast forward to 2022, extreme summer temperatures in Qatar forced administrators to shift the entire tournament to November and December. Every major administrative shift is basically a mirror reflecting a broader global reality.
But, amidst all these massive administrative shifts, the game was ultimately defined by pure on-pitch genius. In 1986, Diego Maradona perfectly illustrated the duality of football, giving us both the cheeky, illegal hand of God goal, and then, literally moments later, the goal of the century, where he just danced past 5 English defenders. It's exactly this mix of intense controversy and undeniable, mesmerizing skill that turned players like Maradona into literal deities for an entire generation.
Now, the immense pressure of that global stage does have a much darker side, which our sources document very thoroughly. We see extreme friction, like the super-violent 1962 Battle of Santiago or the 2006 Battle of Nuremberg that featured 4 red cards, not to mention Zinedine Zidane's infamous final headbutt. We see outright deception, like in 1990 when Chile's goalkeeper Roberto Rojas used a hidden blade to fake an injury from a flare, which resulted in a lifetime ban. And most tragically, we see the real-world cost of a mistake with the absolutely heartbreaking murder of Colombian captain Andres Escobar after a 1994 own goal. Yet, despite these intense tragedies and controversies, the sport has somehow continued to just grow exponentially.
And finally, Part 6, a billion-dollar global empire. Just think about this contrast for a second. We started with a mere 13 teams in Uruguay, battling steep travel costs and a global depression. Today, the World Cup is a massive billion-dollar empire. The trophy itself, which was redesigned in 1970 by Silvio Gazzaniga, is made of solid 18-karat gold and weighs over 6 kilograms. And as we look toward 2026, the tournament is expanding across an entire continent, the USA, Canada, and Mexico, hosting a staggering 48 nations. Yet here is what you should absolutely take away from all of this. Beneath the highly technical VAR system, the billion-dollar player transfers, and the mega stadiums, the core of the sport hasn't changed since ancient times. Whether it's Lionel Messi lifting that gold trophy in Qatar, or a child in a dusty alley just kicking a bundle of rags, the feeling is identical. Its absolute, universal accessibility remains its greatest superpower. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've traced this game from a 2,000-year-old Chinese military drill through world wars, global economic collapse, and massive technological shifts. But as football becomes increasingly corporatized in an era of endless money and instant video replays, you kind of have to wonder, has the beautiful game lost a bit of its original chaotic soul? Or is this massive 48-team global empire just setting the stage for the greatest chapter yet to be written? Think about that the next time you sit down to watch a match. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.